The question inherent in all of this seems to be, if there is a God, why do so many bad things happen? Why is there war, disease, hunger, anger, etc.? Why does the world doggedly refuse to be perfected, to have evil removed from it? Well, that's just a question asked from the point of view of the Judeo-Christian Islamic thread of religious belief, and that is by no means the only view of God, the only view of deity. The ancient Greeks and Romans, for example, believed that the gods were not morally neutral, but they were both good and evil at the same time. They would say that the Christian or the Muslim or the Jew would define God as the way he wants God to be. The ancient Greek or Roman would say, we describe the gods the way they really are. Unfortunately, a moral person can be struck down with a horrible disease or meet a horrible end through no fault of his own, can end up in his equivalent of Auschwitz, can end up at the receiving end of a gun, even though he hasn't done anything at all to merit it. By the same token, a very quote-unquote evil person could prosper, live very happily, and get away with it his entire life, die in bed. Joseph Stalin is a pretty good case of that. So, that's another view of deity, that deity is just an encapsulation of the entirety of the universe, good and evil. As Forrest Gump said, I think it's both, this world that we live in. It's good and it's evil. Now, this is a current that is actually still popular today in the religions of the faith of the Indian subcontinent, Hinduism. There were other threads of this throughout the world, other traditions that take this kind of view. If you study the worship of Kali or Shiva or Durga or any number, even Vishnu, who is a generally beneficent god, he has a nasty side as well. It's not that these gods are evil, they certainly are not, but they are saying if you want to understand God, you have to understand his bad side too, or even not his bad side, but a side that you might not like or you might be afraid of, because these gods represent bits of life which we would prefer not to look in the face. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, where God is generally portrayed to be an enormously beneficent God who loves humanity intensely and wants humanity to love him back, even he admits, yes, even I destroy. And there's an image of him as time itself, with human beings caught in the gaps of his teeth as he chews the universe up. Now, again, the whole thrust of the Gita, or the whole thrust of Hinduism, is the world is what it is. And the most logical thing is to cope with it, or to see good, evil, these polarities as the same thing. I'm not going to say that the Hindus are the only ones who do this, and that generally Hindus are morally neutral or morally ambiguous people. They're not. They believe in morality just as much as anyone else does. But their religious tradition allows for this. Their religious tradition allows for a more totalic, more all-encompassing view of what deity is. So, okay, the arguments presented here in God the Mafia Boss might be able to say that, yes, God is not neutral. Doesn't prove that God does not exist, or it doesn't even really define what God is. It's just perhaps debunking the traditional Judeo-Christian Islamic view of deity. There's more than one view of God, and I would say that the one that is most current today, the most discussed today, the Judeo-Christian Islamic one, is probably the one that has been least common in the human experience. And I think that the fact that we've cleaved to this idea of God, to a just, moral, all-loving God, is one of the reasons why religion is on its way out in our society or in our civilization. Because we're never going to eliminate badness or negativity from this universe. It's part of what the universe and part of what we actually are. Thank you.